I've had so many people tell me that like this was their drink. This was their first drink when they quit drinking, was they would like drink our bitters and soda. I'm like, that's wild. Yeah, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
That's gotta be such a cool feeling.
People will walk into the shop and like they're like visiting from out of state and they're like, they've been sober for 2 or 3 years. They're like, this was one of the first things that I drank. That's crazy. Like, what do you mean you like bought our bitters in Seattle and you were drinking them? Like, I make this in my kitchen.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Tales, Ales, and Trails. I'm Nick. This week's episode is with Ian Blessing, founder of All the Bitter. It's a non-alcoholic bitters company located right here in Chico, California. He was gracious enough to open the doors of his mocktail lounge, invited us in for a fantastic discussion about bitters, about his journey with sobriety, about his journey as a businessman and how he and his wife Carly came back to Chico and kind of settled down here, found an avenue, found an opportunity to do some really meaningful work in the alcohol and more importantly, the non-alcoholic industry with bitters specifically. So it's a fantastic discussion. It really dives into, the role that non-alcoholic drinks can play in people's lives if they have chosen to go sober for a week, a month, a year, forever. It really is a great conversation about that, and of course about Ian and his wife and his family's journey and the All the Bitter experience. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on X, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, all the major social media platforms. We're there. We're posting every single day. And yeah, without further ado, please enjoy this episode with Ian Blessing of All the Bitter. Cheers. Well, Ian, thanks so much for having us down here. It's a fantastic space. I mean, I know you opened this not too long ago, but it's beautiful in here. I mean, yeah, it is. It's pretty great.
That is 100% my wife, Carly.
Really?
Yeah,
awesome.
That's all her.
Yeah.
She made this table. She made the desk. She did the shelves. You can't see it from here, but she cut the windows in the lounge wall.
Really?
She built the back bar, and then did all the decoration and painting and color schemes and everything.
And I know you guys both have previous, bar and restaurant experience, so it probably helped with, creating the aesthetic that you wanted to create here.
Yeah, I mean, we both spent our our previous careers in bars and restaurants. So it was a very, kind of homey, natural, kind of thing to do. But we've also been out of bars and restaurants for kind of a while. Right. And so honestly, this place was more kind of inspired by our house. It's meant to just be kind of cozy and warm, and it's very, obviously very different from a traditional bar.
Sure. Yeah, no, the cozy and warm vibes definitely come through really strong.
I mean, if you think about it, like what you got going on back there, it's almost like a living room type deal. You think traditional English pubs are almost like an extension of someone's house.
Like a lounge.
Yeah. Well, and that's the idea. I mean, we started this business in our kitchen. We started in our home, and we're very much, the quintessential small family business. Like, our kids are here. You'll see them running around behind the bar. Like, we send a little tiny toy dinosaur with every order that we ship on our website from our kids. So we're a small family business. We're a couple weirdos making, a handmade product that we happen to ship, around the country to 500 bars and restaurants and retailers and export to 8 countries.
Yeah.
But it's a mom and pop business.
Right.
So the idea is very much this is our home. This is an extension of our home. But then you've got tanks and stuff on the other side of the window. Yeah.
All the business.
Yeah. That's nice.
I want to get into all of that, obviously. I mean, it's such a fascinating business that you have. I think we got to start with you first and foremost, talking about your background, talking about where you're from, where you grew up, kind of how you got to here in a roundabout way. But
well, I don't know. Where do we start? I'm from LA. I grew up in Southern California and went to school here in Chico when I was 18. Lasted 2 years. Didn't do much school. Did a lot of partying. I worked at the Pita Pit. I worked the 10 at night to 4 in the morning shift.
They were doing a 4 in the morning shift with that?
Well, I mean, we closed it.
Okay,
we
sure.
closed it. I don't know what the hours are now. We closed at 3 back then. 2 or 3? 3. And it took about an hour to close.
Sure.
And we'd be, pretty slow. The first 10 to 12 was pretty slow. It was mostly a handful of stoners, kind of walking in ready for a big sandwich.
Yeah.
I got tipped in weed a couple times. That was pretty rad. Can any of this be in this show? Is that okay?
We can, yeah, whatever you want.
So there was a couple stoners for the first couple hours, and then 12 o'clock, the drunk kids start coming in, and then whenever the bars close at 1:30, absolute chaos. Just the most insane. That was my first, restaurant job. I guess I worked at Cold Stone. I served ice cream, but that was that was probably my first serving food job, which explains a lot now that I look back on my life and my career, and my drinking habits and my love for service.
Sure.
That was fun. That was the absolute best. It was so fun, so fun. Wild times, the Pita Pit. So anyway, dude, two years of school here. That didn't really work out. That didn't take. I bounced around for a while. I lived in Virginia for a couple of years. I went back to LA. I lived in San Diego for a bit. Moved up to Northern California. Moved up to Seattle for 6 months. Then moved back down to Napa and Sonoma, and then found my way back here somehow. Sober with children.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it
very
feels
very
like there's
different.
A lot in that journey.
There was we skipped over a lot.
A couple of chapters.
We skipped over a lot. The important part was the Pita Pit, circa 2004.
I want you to know
Those were the formative years of my life.
I want you to know that I understand. I went from working at a Togo's to working at Riley's for years.
And
I get it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I understand.
I
don't know if that answered your question, but
I think it did.
But now you're mostly caught up.
I think it's a big picture look at how you got here.
Yeah.
You met your wife Carly while working as a sommelier at the French Laundry.
That's insane.
I gotta ask you about that.
To the French Laundry.
Yeah, I mean,
Story of triumph.
When I saw that on the website, I'm like, all right, there's a story here. I mean, sommelier at the French Laundry. Tell me about that. What was that like?
It was an amazing time, an amazing experience. I had worked in restaurants for 12 years or so before that, but had never done anything remotely like the French Laundry. Started as a food runner, which is where I had started my restaurant journey 10 years prior. And then in the meantime had managed multiple restaurants and been a GM of multiple restaurants, and go back to being a food runner at 30 years old. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Insane, completely insane. Very close to quitting multiple times within the first 2 weeks. But then after that, never really ever again. I don't know, it's restaurants like that have a really interesting way of kind of self-selecting who's gonna stay and who's gonna go. You read out real quick. If it's not for you, do not stick. You don't need to do this.
They're like, please don't.
You don't need to do this. You can go make just as much money somewhere else and be way more chill. But the people that realize it's for them realize it pretty quickly, and it's a fucking blast. So much fun. So I spent the first year as a food runner, and I think to kind of answer your question, I had started getting into wine about a year or two prior. Like I said, I'd worked in restaurants for a long time, but I never learned anything about wine. And I had kind of gotten into beer and spirits just as somebody who likes to drink. I like to drink a little too much. but got into like the history and the style of beer and spirits, and like thought that was all really interesting. But like never learned anything about wine. And one day I realized that, and so I picked up a book and I started reading, and was like immediately completely engrossed in the history and the people and the geography and the terroir and the law and all these different, you know, facets that like went into this beverage, and then kind of thinking that it was like wine is just wine, and then realizing there's thousands of grape varietals, and there's this like incredible just network of kind of things to learn, and you get to drink at the same time. Like, come on, like that's good. That's so fun. So like kind of dove into that rabbit hole, you know, really, really quickly and kind of headlong. And managed to find myself a job at the French Laundry. And that was, you know, like, I kind of couldn't believe it. So I spent the first year really kind of just digging into food and learning everything there is to know about food, and all the different sauces and techniques and ingredients and everything. And, you know, was eventually invited to join the wine team, and got to work with Carly a little more closely. And so we both worked together on the floor as somms for about a year, which was great. And then we got pregnant, and she worked pregnant with Jack up until a week before she delivered. Yeah, she's incredible. We're now pregnant with our third. We have 2 kids, and she's pregnant with our third kid right now, doing March. But she was amazing. She you know, serving wine at TFL up until a week before she gave birth. But yeah, absolutely an incredible experience, and one that I cherish very much.
From what I know about the French Laundry, it seems like it can be a really intense environment for everyone attached to it, but it's one of the best dining experiences there is. So I was really fascinated to hear that both you and your wife, you know, kind of met and cut your teeth at a restaurant like that. I mean, that's really cool.
Every restaurant that I worked in, I learned a lot. Like I took something from each one of those places. I worked at the Cheesecake Factory for 5 years, and that restaurant is an absolute beast. You know, 200 something menu items. You know, we would fit 50 people on a shift. You know, we got 20 servers on at a time. The level of systems and the level that everything is dialed in that restaurant is completely nuts. So like, no matter what you think about the food, no matter what you think about the restaurant itself, like, it's really good at what it does. The machine itself. Like, I mean, I can still tell you how many sprinkles go on a birthday sundae. Like, I can tell you the cut of the julienne carrots. That's insane. Because like we had that drilled in so hard. You know, and again, like, this is, you know, different from a place like the French Laundry, where you absolutely need to learn everything, because if you don't, you're never going to hear the end of it. A place like the Cheesecake Factory or any other restaurant, really, you're going to find people who are like really into it, and they want to know and learn and do everything. And that was me. You know, I ended up working every single position in the restaurant. From, you know, I learned 3 stations. I worked pizza, salad, and sandwich. I was responsible for 60 dishes, something like an insane amount. And then the next day I'd be a, you know, server or a food runner. Like, there's a lot to do for somebody who's like very ADHD. That is the perfect restaurant, because I can literally work 6 different jobs, and there's 200 menu items to learn. And I can be the guy that, when servers are like, you know, what is there an allergen in this dish? Like, they have questions, like, I can help you. I loved that. That was great. So like, I learned a lot at the Cheesecake Factory. There were a lot of takeaways from a place like that. I worked at the Girl in the Fig in Sonoma for 2 years, which is a really wonderful, you know, kind of wine country bistro, very classic Sonoma restaurant. And that was my first kind of step into like more elevated dining and really embracing the story, and it, you know, being more about seasonality and, you know, French dishes and where things are grown and who grew it, and, you know, where it's coming from and all that. And then the French Laundry was very much, you know, you need to know everything about everything. because a guest paid $300 for this meal, and if they ask you where the rabbit's from, like, you need to know where the rabbit's from. And it's a very different kind of style of environment, because you don't, most restaurants, you've got one or two managers on the floor. Everybody else kind of cares or doesn't really care. Most people don't really care, which is fine. Like, no shade to like restaurant people. Like, restaurants are for people who, again, are like really into it and really love it, or it's just a place for people to have a job because you're doing different things and you're like acting or you're moving or you're whatever. Like, restaurants are beautiful, beautiful places filled with, lots of really interesting, different people. But you cannot survive at a restaurant like TFL if you are not 1000% engaged and ready to learn everything and ready to be on top of it all the time, because you have 20 managers on the floor. Every single person is watching you more closely than a normal manager in a normal restaurant watches their team. So every single person that you're working with is like listening to everything you do. And if you mess up, you're going to hear it. And at some point you want to stop messing up. You want to stop hearing it. Right. You're like, I don't want to be, corrected every day. Like, I want to go home and I want to have a perfect day. Yeah. And when you do go home and you're like, I had a perfect day. Yeah. Like, I didn't mess anything up. Like, nobody came and talked to me. Nobody corrected me. Like, that's a big feeling. Yeah. And then eventually you start to string together perfect days, like lots of perfect days. And then you mess up and you go home and it's like, it's a big deal. Yeah. And you're like, but it's okay. Next day you're going to get back up and do it again. But the sense of like, I don't know how to replicate that. Like, I don't know, that's an interesting, would be an important thing, I think, to like break down that level of culture and that level of buy-in and how to replicate it in other industries.
Yeah. The service industry itself that I've found is like what you've been saying, is the lows are pretty low, but the highs are very high. Yeah. When you're in a spot, I'm going to put like Riley's as an example. When there's a shift where everyone's just humming and it's the well-oiled machine it's supposed to be, there's nothing better than that feeling. Right. Yeah. Than getting off shift and then looking at your coworkers and knowing you all just nailed it. Well, like, it's so cool.
Whether it's Cheesecake Factory or Riley's or the French Laundry, you're providing when it's everything's working like you should. You're providing the experience that people came there to enjoy, and that's got to be a pretty cool thing.
And it's so fun because it's the feeling of creating that wonderful experience, but doing it at scale. Yeah. Like doing it at volume. Yeah. Like banging out hundreds of those experiences at night and being like, holy crap, like that was wild. And you're hanging on by a thread the whole time. Like one misstep and it all comes, crashing down. Like it's a high intensity, like super fun. I don't know. It's just, I miss it. I miss working in restaurants. And that's why we built a bar here, because I wanted to serve people again.
That's kind of a perfect transition. I mean, from the French Laundry, you meet Carly there. What brings you guys back up to Chico initially?
So Carly and I had our first son, Jack, in 2019, and quit drinking 5 months into, he was 5 months old. We both drank too much, and that was not a problem when we didn't have kids. We were very high functioning, doing great at work, obviously, had no issues with friendships, family, anything like that. Like life was great. Not great when we had a 5-month-old. It was like, we can't wake up in the middle of the night still drunk, and the baby needs whatever babies need constantly, literally all night long. And we're like, drunk every night. Like, well, this doesn't work. We can't do this anymore. So we quit drinking and decided to have a second child. Miles, our 4-year-old, he's almost 5. And then the pandemic hit. And so we had, a 1-year-old and another kid on the way. And bars and restaurants and hospitality was all closed because of COVID. Right. And we had quit drinking, so there wasn't really anything for us to like do in Napa. We didn't have any money because everything was closed. We're paying, a ridiculous amount of money for a condo in Yountville, which was gorgeous, taking the kids for stroller walks through the vineyard every day, but it didn't make any sense to stay there. And Carly's mom and stepdad are here, so we have family up here, and wanted some grandparent support.
Sure, of course.
So we moved up here and bought a house for significantly less money a month compared to what we were spending to rent. It just like made way more sense. And kind of spent the first year figuring out what we were going to do. It was still it was still COVID. Bars and restaurants were still closed. I went back to work in a restaurant for about a month and just didn't like it anymore. It had been I don't know, a couple years. I wasn't drinking. Like, it was just different, and it just wasn't for me. And Carly started woodworking, that was her pandemic hobby. She built 2 decks in our backyard, and then built tables and chairs and patio furniture. And
I thought you were gonna say like a bird feeder.
No, she built 2 decks. Building furniture. She built the bar, she built the back bar, the desk, everything.
She had background.
She had what?
Did she have background in this?
No. She YouTube videos. That's insane. No, she's like installing toilets now. Like, she tiled the front of the bar. Like, she does all of our house. I do no housework.
I just imagine.
I do dishes. I do laundry. I do lots of housework. I do lots of cleaning.
You coming home one day and there's like a rocking chair and she's like, I learned something.
No, we have like fairly, like, we've traditionally swapped gender roles. Like, she does most of the mom work. I do most of like the business work, but like, she does most of the building and most of the fixing stuff. I can't put anything together. I can't build anything. I can't fix shit. She's installed 2 toilets, 3 toilets.
That's crazy.
Yeah, she's like learning plumbing, like welding, like all this stuff.
Sure.
And I do more of the like dishes and more of the cleaning. I don't know. I forgot why I started talking about that. So anyway, she started woodworking during the pandemic and had gotten a couple jobs and had made some furniture, and that was like her like pandemic side business. And I left the restaurant and started taking real estate classes, because that's what you do if you work in a restaurant. You go from host to server to bar back to bartender, and then bar manager, and then back to bartender, because being a bar manager sucks. And then you either become a brand rep for a liquor company, or you become a real estate agent. Those are the only two acceptable options.
And I know plenty of people that have done that.
I've followed that exact pathway.
Even from bar manager and being like, nah, I'm going back down.
No,
that's insane.
100% true across the board. So I did 3 days of real estate classes and realized I hated it. I don't really care about houses. I don't care about real estate, and the legal jargon put me to sleep. And I was like, I don't want to do this. But we had started getting into non-alcoholic spirits and non-alcoholic cocktails and making drinks. And I realized that nobody was making alcohol-free bitters. There were tons of brands of spirits on the market. There was one brand in itself makes 18, they don't anymore, but they made 18 different spirits. Yeah. It's like you can stock an entire bar with this one range of non-alcoholic spirits. But they were advertising, non-alcoholic old fashions and Manhattans with Angostura, with bitters that are 45% alcohol by volume. You're only using a couple of dashes. So depending on, bitters are often sold as non-alcoholic. They're 45% alcohol. You can take the top off and pour it in a glass and drink it like anything else. Yeah. 2 dashes are not going to get you drunk, but depending on why you're not drinking, plenty of people who are, sober don't want you to add half a teaspoon of, hard liquor to their alcohol-free drink. Yeah. They may understand that it's not going to get them drunk, but they don't want you to add booze to their alcohol-free drink.
For a lot of people, that's not the point.
Yeah. Whether you're like, you're in recovery, or you're religious, or there's medications that interact with alcohol. There's like a million reasons why somebody might not want you to add Angostura to your mocktail. But that bars do that. bars, put bitters in their mocktails without asking their guests first.
I'll bet you someone with a peanut allergy would care if you slipped a tiny little sliver of a peanut.
1,000%.
Yeah.
The analogy that I give is veggie burgers. Yeah. Like, you don't cook a veggie burger in bacon fat.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, and if you did, first of all, the servers would be like, "What is wrong with, like, why would you do that? You're making my job so hard." Yeah. But every single one of them would ask whenever a veggie burger got ordered, they'd ask, "Just so you know, we cook our veggie burger in bacon fat. Like, is that okay with you?" No. And they would get the weirdest looks. Yeah, like, why would you? It doesn't make any sense. But for some reason, bartenders don't, and they are more and more now. The more non-alcoholic options become mainstream, the more we have options like alcohol-free bitters now. Right. But bartenders still will use Angostura or other 45% alcohol bitters in their mocktails and not feel like they need to ask their guests. Yeah. Like, I talked to somebody a couple weeks ago who was like, had a mocktail a couple of years ago, had no idea. I explained to him that Angostura was 45% alcohol. And he was like, just remembered about a time a couple of years ago when he ordered a non-alcoholic drink and was served something with Angostura and didn't know what that was. Yeah. And I could see him like reeling a little bit. He was like, he's obviously fine.
Sure. Yeah.
But he was like shook. He's like, I drank alcohol.
Right. Without
my consent. Yeah. Like, it's an allergy. Yeah. It is literally an allergy for some people. Yeah. And for some people, it's potentially much worse. Yeah. Because even though it didn't make you drunk, even though it's completely 2 dashes of bitters is non-intoxicating, that is enough to mentally trigger some people into going back to drink.
Yeah. Unknowingly, too. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Subconsciously.
So we realized that this didn't exist. There was one brand at the time of non-alcoholic bitters. There were and countless brands of non-alcoholic spirits. So I quit real estate classes 3 days in and decided to make alcohol-free bitters instead. And so we developed recipes in our kitchen in mason jars. We spent about a year and alternated time. Carly would do a couple days a week of woodwork, and I would do a couple days a week of like bitters development, recipe development, and then the other one would take the kids. And so we just traded off for a few months, and then realized, within a few months that the bitters business was probably what was gonna take. We had started kind of sharing this stuff online, and got a lot of kind of excited response from both consumers, but also from brands, from spirit brands who were advertising old fashions and Manhattans, and we're like, there were no bitters, so that's why we were doing this. Right. And so we kind of realized that this was probably going to work. And it did. We spent a year developing recipes, and then in our kitchen, and then scaled up into the commercial kitchen in Merriam Park, and we were there for 3 years, and released them. And again, all of these like spirit companies came to us, and we would send them samples, and their brand reps would use them in tastings when they would go to bars and restaurants, and would make old fashions and things for the bartenders, and they would use our bitters. So we don't have any funding. We bootstrapped it from our kitchen. We don't have brand reps. I'm not going into bars. But suddenly I had 30, 40 people paid by other companies sampling our bitters for us. Yeah. So it worked surprisingly. I think kind of more quickly than we thought it would. We found a niche that needed to be filled at the right time. And made a great product, but it was we kind of got lucky in the timing of it.
Yeah.
And in the point in our life where we were like, we don't really know what we're doing.
Right.
And then this kind of jumped out.
Yeah. 2 young kids, kind of figuring out which business you're going to go towards, woodworking or this, and then this kind of, it seems like it takes off, right? In a sense, that's got to be a little bit of a whirlwind experience to be like, okay, we were making the stuff in the kitchen. Now there's a lot more need or a lot more demand for it. How are we going to continue to fill this? Like you said, the commercial kitchen in Merriam Park. What's the last few years of kind of continuing to scale this up been like for you? I'm sure it's been a little nuts.
Yeah, I mean it's been wild, but it's been very steady and, relatively slow and organic, for 5 years. Like we're in, I think I said we're in 500 bars and restaurants, and we're in 8 countries, and we shipped all 50 states, and it's been busy, and it's grown every year, which is amazing. That's what you're looking for. But it's never been, we don't have millions of dollars of investment money. Like we're not blasting crazy ad campaigns. It's been very steady organic growth. So it's never really been. It's been hard. The first year was just me and Carly. And we make everything by hand from start to finish, from hand ground spices, hand peeled oranges, to it was 2 months. Now we let it sit in tank for 3 months. It's a long process, and you stir everything up a few times a week, and then all the herbs get pressed and filtered and bottled, and we hand label and sticker and shrink band and do all of our shipping ourselves. Like there's a lot that goes into the process. The first year was just the 2 of us, and we made 30,000 bottles. We made and sold 30,000 bottles of alcohol-free cocktail bitters, which is wild. I did not see that coming.
Unreal, yeah.
When we started, I was planning on making 150 bottle batches. I was going to do 5 gallons at a time of each flavor. And before we started, I had a conversation with another founder of a non-alcoholic wine company. And I explained the idea, and she was like, you probably want to think about scaling up sooner rather than later. And so scaling up, like, we scaled up from the idea of 3 5-gallon containers in my head to 8 55-gallon drums. Like, it's still like not, it was eight drums. Like, it's could fit in your garage. Like, it fit in 150 square feet of this shared kitchen. It was a very tiny little space.
Right.
But we made 30,000 bottles of bitters in with 8 drums. Yeah. And then we would make it there and then take it home. And from home we would finish it. We would finish labeling it and ship it and all that stuff, because we were paying for the commercial kitchen.
Right.
So I wasn't gonna like label stuff there.
Sure.
I was gonna go home and shrink band stuff at my house. Like working in our bedroom, for a year, like boxes stacked to the ceiling. Yeah. She did all the shipping from that room. I'm sitting at the desk doing my office work. It was great. I mean, it was great. Like, I love working with my wife, but it was a year of working in like a very small space. And so we eventually we scaled up and moved into a larger area of that kitchen, which allowed us to move all of our product there. And we moved our shipping there, which was great. Yeah. And it was becoming too much for us to do. And I wasn't able to get any of the back end work done, because I was, bottling and stickering and shrink banding bottles all day long. So we hired her stepdad he was our first employee, Ed. He's been with us for 3 years now. Oh my God. 2.5 years, almost 3 years. He works 3 hours a day. He has a hard out at 11:15, goes home and watches soccer and, does the yard work, takes a nap. He's got a sweet gig.
You set him up nice. Huh?
Yeah, no, but he's like, it's been a tremendous help. Like, at a time where we couldn't hire a full-time person, we just needed a few hours. Yeah. He comes in and works a few hours a day, and he'll be gone for like a week at a time, like once a month. Like, he takes, a decent amount of time off. It's like, it's perfect for him. Yeah. Perfect for us. And it was such an enormous help. And then we've kind of done the same thing. Like, we hired our best friend about a year later. And she works about 4 hours a day. She's also got kids, and so she works 4 hours, then goes and picks up the kids. And she really likes doing the hand work, the labeling and the shrink banding and the stickering and those kind of repetitive tasks. She really likes. That's good. That's good. Yeah. So we lucked out there again. Got like just a few hours of labor a day for exactly what we needed. And then hired one more person full-time, who's our operations manager. She kind of manages now, both shipping and production, who we met while we were, working at that kitchen in Merriam Park. So it's been a very steady, organic process where every time we've needed to scale up capacity just a little bit, right. We buy a couple more tanks. We bring somebody on for a couple hours, a day. Yeah. We've now scaled up 4 times. Like, we started from 150 square feet to 500 square feet then moved to 2,500 square feet next door, literally picked up our tanks and walked them next door. Got incredibly lucky, and then found this place. And this is, we've now got, the production facility, warehouse, but also this bottle shop and tasting room up front. And it's been a very incremental, almost yearly. We make like a small step up every year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Were there any big hiccups that you had to overcome?
The biggest hiccups have been this year. The first is we chose to take our product off Amazon earlier this year. For a lot of reasons, Amazon's a really challenging platform to sell on. Yeah. It's really challenging to deliver good customer service, and that's our whole point. Yeah. Is to take care of people, and they don't let you do that. It's really hard to communicate with your customers and make things right when somebody doesn't like something. But the main reason we left it was we wanted to support small retailers who, suffer because we buy everything on Amazon. And so that was the goal, was to support them and to increase those sales, to get people to go to, support local non-alcoholic shops. Unfortunately, we didn't really see the sales come back to our website. We didn't see the sales come back to small retailers. It's just sales that we lost, and it represented a huge chunk of our sales. So we're looking at actually going back on Amazon probably early next year. But what we're going to do is we're going to include a little card, a little insert with each box that directs people to a map of non-alcoholic bottle shops and bars around the country.
I like that.
That's awesome.
Not on our site, so it's within Amazon's terms of service. We're not telling people to go buy it somewhere else. Sure. It's just educational. It just says, find community near you, scan the QR code to find a local, bottle shop near you. So trying to support bottle shops, by actively supporting them rather than by what we were trying to do, which was support them by omission.
Right.
We're going to actively try to support them by directing people to them.
That's cool.
So that was a challenge, just in that we lost a lot of sales this year, which was a bummer. Found out kind of after the fact that a lot of bars were buying them on Amazon.
Straight from Amazon.
It's easy, it's quick, it gets there in a day, and you can buy a single bottle versus having to sign up for a website and then order 6 bottles. And it's cocktail bitters. You might only need a bottle at a time. You don't want to buy 6 bottles.
They can do the subscription platform where they don't even need to go on the
100%. Yeah,
send
exactly
from Amazon.
Save money there. So there were a lot of kind of things that we didn't really think about. Right. So that was a struggle. The second thing that happened this year was we had an issue with the FDA. We used ashwagandha in our lavender bitters, which is an adaptogen that helps our bodies deal with stress and cortisol levels and all these different things. And it's in 10 of the things that we sell in our store. It's all over the non-alcoholic beverage space. It's in chocolate and coffees and teas. It's literally everywhere. Yeah. But we were informed that it's not permitted to be used in conventional foods, only supplements.
Wow, interesting.
All these drinks that we sell are foods, not supplements. They're drinks, not supplements. Right. Anything with the nutrition facts panel is a food. Anything with a supplement label is a supplement. There are hundreds of products that are foods that use ashwagandha. Why we were targeted and asked to remove it from our formulation, and we destroyed $50,000 in product. We dumped an entire tank down the drain, and then had to take about 1,000 bottles to the dump, and have the investigator watch us throw them away. She asked the person at the Neal Street dump at the box if a tractor could drive over the bottles. She was talking to the woman at the window for 10 minutes. I'm like, what is she talking about? She was asking her to drive over the bottles, and I wasn't there for the conversation, but I can only imagine the woman was like, no, they're going to get driven over. They're going to what do you think I'm going to go back and take them?
Yeah, what?
Do you think I'm going to we're going to drive she's with us. She's driving behind us. Do you think we're going to drive away, come all the way back to our place here and then go drive back to the dump to try and go pick up.
And also that you have some backroom
bottles
deal
of-
with Neil that they're just going to...
like, what am I going to do with that?
Like you're slipping a hundo to the guy sitting in the truck going, yeah, just dump it right there.
Hold on to these for a minute. We'll be back.
It was the weirdest experience of my life. So long story short, we're informed that we can't use this ingredient. We have to get rid of it. So we do. We throw everything away. We cease sales immediately. We've been sold out of our lavender bitters since April, which was the worst time to beginning of spring. We sell out of our springtime flavor. Just been getting emails and calls and complaints all year long. Where are these bitters? Like, we had to reformulate them. So we have a rebrand coming out. These are our old bottles. These are our new bottles. But we were working on that anyway. So the timing was great. We had to change all of our labels anyway. So we changed all of our ingredients, reformulated everything. But we didn't have, it's a 3-month process to make our cocktail bitters. It's a 3-month development process. We did not test new recipes. This was the largest experimental batch we've ever done. We did 12 tanks and the recipes were all new. We changed everything. The good news is that making bitters is not a super complex process. And there's a lot of work that goes into making it. But it's not like winemaking. There's not a million variables. It was easy enough to kind of like pull things and add things back, and it's our best batch. Literally, it's our best batch ever. Cool. But we reformulated everything, and we'll be re-releasing lavender along with everything else in a whole new lineup in 3 weeks. But we lost those sales and we lost that placement in hundreds of stores where we had that on the shelf. That's been replaced now by something else. So we lost shelf placement in hundreds of retailers across the country. And again, I still don't really understand why. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the non-alcoholic, kind of functional wellness space over the next
because
2-3 years.
It's a space that is not brand new, but it's gained so much popularity so quickly in the last few years. So maybe there is going to be more scrutiny around it as you guys move forward.
That was a very long answer to do you have any speed bumps? Which is funny because before this year, my answer was always no.
Yeah.
Was it hard? Like, yeah, it's hard. Like, building a company's hard. But like, I genuinely could not think of, and I've been asked that question, multiple times, and I'm like, not really.
Yeah.
Everything's pretty chill.
I was going to say the expansion.
You don't know how to do something, and then you learn, and you figure it out, and you just do it. Yeah. This was the first year I was like, oh man.
Yeah, got hit.
Business sucks. Everything's hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to be an adult.
Yeah, right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Well, I think, and I don't want to, go too far in trying to extend this through line, but it feels like the attention to detail that you picked up from a place like the French Laundry, the I think somewhere like that instills such a determined, hardworking spirit that I'm sure you had before, but only kind of hardened that. Sure. The work that you put into this, we can see the attention to detail. We can see, how much effort you're putting into this business day in and day out. Yeah. I don't want to say compared to the French Laundry, it probably doesn't seem that bad, but it probably feels like, the hard work is necessary to you, right?
Yeah. It's not something that we can turn off.
Sure.
And it never really feels like work. And truly, the French Laundry was easily my favorite job ever until now. Right. And I think what's really cool is that I've had a hard time, kind of staying in one place for more than a couple years at a time. And even the French Laundry, I was there for 3 years and then left to go manage Bouchon, Thomas Keller's bistro down the street, where I was running the wine program. That was a cool deal. I was I got to go from somm to wine director.
Yeah.
I got to run a wine program, but I was there for 6 months. And then I went to Opus One and I was managing the hospitality program at Opus One. I had a hard time staying in one spot for more than very long. And we're going into it. This is the longest I've held a job now. Not held a job. I left every job.
Sure.
But this is the first time that I've been able to keep planted. And, you know, I think a lot of it is because there's so much to do. There's so many, you know, I can't recommend starting a business unless you like absolutely need to.
Yeah.
Like, unless it'll kill you not to do it, don't do it. Go do something else. But if you absolutely need to, and you have ADHD, then do it. Absolutely do it.
You made a comment earlier when you were talking about your wife's stepdad. I think, right? You were like 3 years. Like the time kind of slipped away.
Yeah,
it's just
wild.
It's probably because you know there's stuff to do. You've got plenty of things to
do. There, you know, my like any given. So I mentioned this earlier. Like that's why I liked the Cheesecake Factory so much. And ironically, I made it 5 years at the Cheesecake Factory. At 6 different restaurants.
Yeah.
I was not in one place. I moved around constantly. But it stuck the longest because there was so much to do and learn. And so many, at one restaurant, I literally worked 6 or 7 different positions. Like my schedule had like 3 or 4 different jobs on it every week. And that was super entertaining. This is very much the same thing. Where like, you know, in any given day, I'm going to be having phone calls with distributors, creating marketing materials, managing our social media account, mopping the floors, peeling oranges, making things, you know, doing test batches and experimental batches, serving guests, talking to people, making people drinks, and then, you know, taking the trash out at the end of the day. Yeah. It's this scale is perfect for me. And Carly feels very much the same way. Like it's there's always something to do. And you obviously have, you know, much more investment in it because it's yours. But there's always something to do, and that is really fulfilling for me.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you said, like the working in a restaurant idea or service industry. It becomes very clear quickly whether this is for you or not.
Yeah.
And it's a mindset of people. I feel that, you know, when you work in a restaurant or, you know, someplace like that, or a bar or something, it's long hours. You're working like 7 days a week. You know, you're doing it for not that much pay.
Yeah.
And you're completely fine with it. People when I worked at the bar, you guys, you and your wife were like, well, when do you get a day off, dude? And it's like that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is my life.
Yeah.
The people ask me like, well, what do you do outside? I'm like, outside of work. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and I go drink with the people that I work with.
Yeah, and it's at the place that I work at.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, 100%.
And I don't. And people outside of that, you know, they're like, you're crazy, and you're like, yeah, we are. And you're just you recognize it, but you're totally fine with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of like the same thing as like owning a business, like that mindset. And I think maybe that's why you transition so, you know, gracefully.
Yeah.
I would say. And it's an all-encompassing thing. And the ADHD thing definitely helps.
Yeah.
Definitely helps.
Yeah, it's very similar. You know, when I'm here 12 hours a day, and then, you know, I'm working from my phone or, you know, on the computer when I'm not. But, you know, I don't know. At the same time, this is even better for me, and that was, you know, part of the reason why I couldn't stay at one, you know, place for more than a couple of years. Is, you know, I have a hard time. I have a hard time both managing people and working for other people. And I went back and forth from serving or, you know, a staff level job to managing 6 times. Literally would go from server to manager, like six times. Because as a server, not hated is a strong term. I have a lot of managers that I've loved. But I would get a lot of people that I've worked for that I really, really liked. But I would get very frustrated with the ones that I didn't like and weren't pulling their weight and weren't helping out and weren't, I don't know, doing their job. Like I have like a internal struggle with that. Yeah, and so I would go to managing, and then I would get tired of having 100 people on the floor calling my name constantly. Like the next person that says Ian, like I'm gonna snap, like I'm gonna go absolutely nuts. And so I'd go back to, serving again, and then I'd get frustrated with the people that I was, working for. So it's hard. Like it puts you in a weird spot. Like I feel like if that's your personality type, then the only thing that you can do is go start your own business. And so I get like all of the ADHD fulfillment of like having to do a million different jobs, but I also don't have to work for anybody. Right. So like Carly is my boss. Like I send her my like social media posts and I'm like, can you approve this please? And she's either like yes or no. That's it. Like I run things past her. And we have a team of 4 people here who are like our best friend and stepdad. And again, Darcy, who we've been working with for like years, and it's like, we're not really managing anybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody just kind of does their job, and everybody gets along. And I don't actually manage anybody.
Great.
Yeah. Sounds
we
awesome.
We just like eat tacos together, and make bitters. It's great.
I love it. I love it. And I think, and I want to make sure we touched on this. I mean, part of why maybe this doesn't feel like so much of a job, in addition to everything we just talked about, I mean, it's such a worthwhile product. I mean, I feel like thinking about people who might be in a very similar spot to what you and Carly were in, like just, hey, drinking doesn't fit in the mix anymore. It doesn't make sense for us. But we still want to be able to have that community that comes with it, right? Being able to have a drink, hang out with somebody, and talk without all the effects of alcohol. I mean, it feels like, especially now in 2025, we're seeing record low drinking levels across the board. People aren't drinking, but they still want to have that community aspect of it. And I feel like I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but I feel like it's such a valuable, worthwhile product in today's day and age, and it's tied to you and Carly's journey. So it just feels like a really great thing to be, working with in today's day and age.
Yeah, I mean it's very satisfying. Yeah. And the business for me has so many different layers of satisfaction of why I enjoy doing this so much. For every reason that we've already talked about, but because we're doing something good. We're creating something that helps people. And getting emails from people that say that, our bitters have changed their life is like, that's a weird thing to hear. That like I make cocktail bitters and it like changed somebody's life. Like not like no shade on any other cocktail bitter brand, but like I'd be very surprised if like standard traditional alcoholic bitters were getting emails from people that were like, this changed my life. Like it's a delicious bitter and it made a good drink for sure. Absolutely. But like getting that kind of response from our customers is pretty wild because it's not just an ingredient. It's not just for flavor. It helps people drink better or differently or less. Which depending on which one of those things you're doing can be pretty impactful. I've had people tell me that somebody's dad, his favorite drink was bitters and soda, and quit drinking and was not comfortable with alcoholic bitters and hadn't had a bitters and soda in years, and was like deeply moved that he got to have that drink again. It's nostalgic. And it's like it's bitters and soda. Like it's not even like I don't know. It's interesting. Bitters are obviously they're used in drinks like old fashions, Manhattans. Sure. They don't get thought about very often because it's like salt. It's like salt and pepper. Like it's a minor ingredient in cocktails. It doesn't really get the limelight. But just adding it to soda water, just mixing up bitters and soda is such an easy drink to make, and it's such a good transition drink for people who are quitting drinking. It has been the transition drink for people who are not drinking. And if you're comfortable with a couple dashes of alcoholic bitters, it's such an easy drink to order at bars. Everybody has bitters. Everybody has soda water. It tastes good. It tastes like a cocktail. It's not sweet. There's no sugar. It's really easy to make. Like it's such a good gateway drink. And so to have an option like this for people who are quitting drinking that aren't comfortable with alcoholic bitters, they get to make bitters and soda, and it's satisfying, it's refreshing, it's adult, it's good for you, it's good for digestion. And for a lot of people who are just starting to, starting their recovery journey, they may not be comfortable with a drink that tastes like a margarita. Yeah. They might not be comfortable with a non-alcoholic beer or, a non-alcoholic wine. That could be too close for them. That could be triggering. Right. Everybody's different. It's not for, I've been, sober 6 years, and I love having a non-alcoholic Negroni. Like, that's the best thing ever. But for a lot of people, they don't want a drink that tastes like tequila. Yeah. And bitters and soda is kind of the perfect middle ground, because it doesn't really taste like an alcoholic beverage. It tastes like flavored seltzer, but it's just a more interesting version of flavored seltzer. It's like the cocktail version of a LaCroix, which is like what everybody defaults to when you quit drinking or you're trying to drink less. You just crush flavored seltzers. You crush LaCroix. This is just LaCroix, but like grown up. So it's such a great transitional tool. And I've had so many people tell me that this was their drink. This was their first drink when they quit drinking, was they would drink our bitters and soda. I'm like, that's wild. Yeah, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
That's gotta be such a cool feeling.
People will walk into the shop and they're visiting from out of state, and they're they've been sober for 2 or 3 years. And they're like, this was one of the first things that I drank. That's crazy. I'm like, what do you mean you bought our bitters in Seattle and you were drinking them? I make this in my kitchen. Yeah. That's weird. I still can't get over that. And it happens, it happens every other day here. Yeah. But it's always a trip when somebody comes and they're like, I had somebody at the bar yesterday, I was making their drinks, and I don't even think they realized, she didn't realize that this is what we made here. I think she just came in and thought it was just a non-alcoholic bar. And I show them the bottle and she's like, you make that? I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, I love your bitters. I'm like, oh, thank you.
That's not what you came here for?
That's so nice. It's wild. It's a trip. So it's deeply satisfying for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. And I, before we let you go here, I did want to touch on, where we're sitting right now, the Zero Proof Lounge. You opened it in June, grand opening in June. It was a soft opening in January. But in a city like Chico, where there's so many different areas where you can have an alcoholic beverage, for the people who, and it's a growing number of people who just aren't drinking anymore or are drinking less, to have a space where you can go and still, like I was talking about earlier, find that community, find a place where you can hang out, have a conversation, but drink something non-alcoholic. It feels like that's such a valuable thing to have in a community, in a culture like this.
Yeah, it's been, I've had a lot of really, cool moments serving drinks here at the bar. Two dudes getting into a deeply personal conversation, talking about love and life, and after a couple of kava cocktails, and I'm like, this is a bar conversation. Yeah. This is like a 3 drinks in bar conversation. And it's happened a couple times, and it's honestly kind of a trip to see people connect in a way that you expect them to connect over alcohol, but they're just sitting having non-intoxicating drinks, and just enjoying each other's company, and just having a conversation. So to be able to give people that space to kind of feel like they're in that environment, and to have that feeling at 2:00, and to be able to go about your day and not have to go take a nap at 4:00 in the afternoon is pretty cool. And to be able to offer people who don't drink a safe space to come out and have a drink, and honestly, more importantly, and this is the whole reason we do what we do, is to be able to help people make better drinks at home, and to help kind of guide people into what is good, what's not good, and how to use it. Because the biggest issue, kind of in the non-alcoholic space, is that not everything on the market is good, but even the stuff that is good, it's not as simple as buying a bottle of NA whiskey and just pouring a glass of whiskey. You can't drink it that way. So the whiskey that we use in all of our cocktails is called Kentucky 74, and it has a 1.5-star rating on Amazon. You're going to spend $40. It's going to show up a couple days later. People are going to open it, taste it, and go, this sucks, and they dump it down the drain. because nobody told them that you can't just drink it straight. You need to make a cocktail with it, and you make a whiskey sour or a bourbon mule, or if you're gonna make an old fashioned, make it this way, which is not straightforward. And unfortunately, the spirit companies are trying, and again, no shade, I love my friends at the spirit companies making whiskeys, but they're trying to get people to make an easy drink because people need easy. And so they're sending you this whiskey and saying, make an old fashioned with it, with a couple dashes of our bitters, thank you, that's lovely, and a sugar cube, the same way you'd make a standard old fashioned. It's not very good because the whiskey isn't good by itself. So if you're gonna make an old fashioned, now you're just diluting it, adding a couple dashes of bitters, which isn't enough to make the difference, and sweetening it. That's not a satisfying cocktail. We make our old fashioned by combining a whiskey with a second spirit. We use one spirit that has kind of black pepper and ginger flavors and is really punchy and has a lot of like interesting texture. And then we use another spirit, that one's called Tennyson. We use another spirit called Nightcap, which is made with ashwagandha and valerian root and hops and lemon balm. It's calming, but has a really interesting, really wonderful flavor. It's kind of woody. It's also a little spicy. They add some heat to it. And then they balance it with maple syrup. So it has a pleasing texture because that maple syrup gives it body. Tennyson, the black pepper ginger spirit, has a texture that is worth drinking. It's super punchy. It impacts your mouth. The whiskey doesn't work by itself, mostly because of the texture. It's not 40% alcohol. It doesn't drink like whiskey does. To go back to veggie burgers, again, as an analogy, a veggie burger with a fork and a knife is not very satisfying. But you put it on a bun with ketchup and lettuce and tomato and onions and pickles and mustard, and it's great because now you've got crunch and you've got acid and you've got freshness and you've got different textures. Non-alcoholic spirits are kind of the same way. So we combine a whiskey plus another spirit, and then we'll use either ginger syrup or maple syrup, different sweeteners that add different flavor to make an old-fashioned that works. A Manhattan is a very specific example, but a Manhattan made with non-alcoholic vermouth doesn't work very well because the non-alcoholic vermouth is delicious by itself, but isn't strong enough and impactful enough to make the whiskey work. But if you use an Amaro, which is a different category of liquor, but it's basically just a more intense version of vermouth. It's different. That's a simple way of phrasing it, but it's basically vermouth times 10. It's more bitter, it's more herbal, it's more viscous, it's sweeter, and it has more texture. So if you make a Manhattan with Amaro instead of vermouth, it works great. A paper plane works excellent. That's a great drink. But you got to have somebody tell you that. And again, a spirit company's not going to recommend a black Manhattan with an Amaro, and then you got to go figure out what Amaro is. They're going to be like, just use vermouth. And like, the drink's not very good. It's just not very good. So you got people, spending, $60, $80 on spirits, and they're making drinks that aren't good. And they're not going to buy it again.
That sucks.
So the whole point of, again, that was a very long-winded way of saying the whole point of opening the shop doesn't make any money. I mean, it makes money. People come in here, they buy stuff. We have people in here. The point of the shop is not to make money. The point of the shop is to help people make better drinks. And to give people not only the ingredients they need, but the right toolkit, the right recipes.
The resources, yeah.
Yeah, as minute as that sounds, like I want people to make the right drinks the right way. And we get to do that here, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You said long-winded. You've said it a couple of times. I don't see it as long-winded. I see it as you are a real student of your craft, and you have such fascinating insight into all of this. Like I
appreciate that.
I know you know a little bit more in terms of like making drinks and stuff like that, but I wouldn't ever be able to say, a vermouth versus it's been fascinating to.
I only know a little bit. I did work only at Riley's.
But to hear you break it down has been really fascinating.
What's ironic is I learned all of this after I quit drinking.
Yeah, that is.
I had a background. Obviously, I learned, my background was mostly wine and beer and spirits, and I knew nothing about cocktails.
Right.
I had managed multiple bar programs. I had written bar menus, but I wasn't I was server. I had managed bars. And I worked as a somm. I never worked as a bartender. Right. I trained. I learned. I learned, a decent amount. I learned enough to be able to help.
Sure.
And not be the manager that went behind the bar and just got in the way. which is a hilarious meme. I tried not to be that meme. I'm sure I was, but I actively tried not to. I didn't know anything about cocktails. I never had a bar at home. I couldn't stock a bar. I'd bring home a bottle of whiskey and I would drink it within a day. Like, I couldn't stock a bar. I couldn't be trusted with a bar at home. So I never made drinks. I didn't know anything about cocktails, cocktail history. And then, kind of like in the same way that I got really into wine, I was like, whoa, there's a whole history and a geography, and there's all these different rules, and like, there's so much to learn about making drinks. But I learned all this within the last 5 years.
Yeah, that is such a fascinating turn of events.
Yeah.
You get sober and then you learn how to make.
You still get to make drinks. Like, and that's the fun of it is and for people who are not drinking anymore, like having an alternative in your hand, having something that is satisfying, that has that same ritual. But I think the surprise is that if you want to get into it, like, there's a lot to learn. Yeah. And there's an entire bar now. There's an entire category with hundreds of, different liquors and spirits and wines, and you can do all the same stuff that you can do with alcohol. Yeah. There's a lot to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I did want to kind of bookend this conversation. And it's been a fantastic one. I really appreciate you, taking the time to open the doors for us and let us come down and talk to you. But I want to ask you about what's next for All the Bitter. I know, like we talked about, 2025 was definitely a challenging year, some hiccups. But what's next for you guys as we move into the new year?
Our rebrand. So this is what we've been working on for the last year. We're launching a new website in 3 weeks. It'll be beginning in December. New website with new bottles, new labels, new flavors, new sizes of bottles, new options for people. And then along with that, something we've never offered before, but is an extension of the shop, which is we're going to start shipping our cocktail kits from our website. So we're going to launch with 8 kits, and we're going to add 4 more over the next year. So we'll eventually have 12 that'll be evergreen. They'll live on the site. 2 different old fashions: a Manhattan, Negroni, Margarita, a Cava Lemon Drop, a Cava Mule, a Hibiscus Sour. That's what we're starting with. And then we'll have 4 more coming up pretty soon. But everything comes with everything that you need to make those drinks, plus a really nice little booklet that has the hero recipe, but also 3 other recipes that you can make using those ingredients. You may need an additional item or 2 to make those extra drinks. So like the Margarita kit comes with a recipe for a Paloma. You'll need grapefruit juice and soda water to make that one. But you've got the tequilas, you've got the lime juice, the agave nectar, the bitters, you've got everything else that goes in that. So kind of transitioning from just making a single ingredient to really taking what we've learned over the last year in the shop of actively making drinks every day and serving people and getting feedback on the fly, this has been an amazing kind of research lab, more or less.
I was gonna say, it's kind of like research.
Yeah. Again, that's kind of the point. Like, the point of this place isn't to make money. It's to educate, and it's to help us figure out how to make better drinks.
Yeah, because you're not getting the comments that you have to wade through. You're getting an initial reaction,
real-time feedback,
someone's face when they take a sip.
Immediate, yeah. And so all of these recipes that we're releasing, and these kits that are coming out, are all drinks that we've been testing extensively over the last year here, and really kind of fine tuning down to like a pretty insane amount. We made our Negroni 30 times before we finally landed on the 1/4 ounce of this, the 3/4 ounce of that. So super excited to get those out there, and that's kind of that'll be the push for the next year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. The last thing I had for you, and really to kind of take a moment to reflect on this entire journey. You've had such a fascinating, I keep using the word fascinating, but you've had such a fascinating trajectory from, your beginnings in Chico to the late nights at Pita Pit to the French Laundry to now this really like inspiring endeavor with All the Bitter. What's been the most rewarding part about this journey for you?
Getting to do it with my kids and my wife.
That's awesome.
Yeah, without a doubt. We've got a swing set in the backyard. We got a TV in the break room back there. They get to come in and do their homework, and they get to see us work, and they pitch in and help out. Mostly they just play. They're kids. But being able to do it with them and with my wife, and really, being able to have, like I said, I'm working 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day when you factor in, extracurricular work. But if I need to take a day off, I take a day off. If I need to be gone for 3 hours or close the shop for a night because, the kids have got something at school, like I put a sign on the door that says we're closed. Yeah. It's a small family business. Like, people figure it out. They come up, they're like, oh, they're closed tonight. Mm-hmm. Like, why are you closed on Saturdays? Because I want to take my kids to the park, man. Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay, that's fair. Like you can't be mad about it. No. So the flexibility that, owning your own very small business gives you is excellent.
Yeah. Sweet.
Definitely. Well, Ian, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate getting to learn about this. I mean, we talked to breweries, we talked to cider houses, but getting to explore, the non-alcoholic side of things has been really awesome. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Awesome.